You agreed to let a stranger into your bedroom, and you paid them for the privilege. Not just your bedroom, your kitchen, your living room, the nursery where your child sleeps. You invited cameras and microphones into the most intimate spaces of your existence, and when someone pointed out what you'd done, you shrugged and said you had nothing to hide. That phrase, nothing to hide, might be the most successful piece of propaganda ever sold to the American public. It's the kind of line that sounds reasonable until you think about it for more than 10 seconds. Because the moment you say you have nothing to hide, you've already lost. You've accepted the premise that you should be watched, that surveillance is normal, that privacy is something only guilty people need. And here's the hook they don't want you to see. The companies selling you these devices, these smart speakers and connected cameras and intelligent thermostats, they're not in the hardware business. They're in the data business. You are not their customer. You are their product. And the factory farming of human behavior is the most profitable industry in the history of capitalism. Let me take you back to a specific moment. The year is 2014. Amazon releases a cylindrical speaker called Echo. It listens constantly, waiting for you to say its name. The media coverage is breathless. Tech journalists call it revolutionary. The future of the home, a digital assistant that understands natural language. But buried in the terms of service, in that legal document nobody reads, is a sentence that should have stopped everything cold. Amazon reserves the right to collect and store voice recordings, not just the commands you give, everything the device hears, every conversation in range of its microphones, every argument with your spouse, every private phone call, every whispered confession in the dark, all of it captured, digitized, stored on servers you will never see, in data centers you will never visit, analyzed by algorithms you will never understand. And America bought 30 million of them in the first 3 years. Think about that. 30 million people, educated people, people who consider themselves informed and savvy, willingly placed listening devices in their homes, devices manufactured by a corporation whose sole legal obligation is to maximize shareholder value, not to protect you, not to respect your privacy, to extract maximum profit from your existence. And the play was so smooth, so perfectly executed, that most people never even noticed they'd been conned. Because Amazon didn't sell it as surveillance, they sold it as convenience, as luxury, as the lifestyle upgrade you deserved. Play my music. Set a timer. What's the weather? Harmless requests. Innocent interactions. But every single one of them feeding data into a system designed to map the interior of your life with corporate precision. Now, I need you to understand something fundamental about how we got here. This didn't start with Amazon. This didn't start with Google or Facebook or any of the tech giants we love to blame. The blueprint for surveillance capitalism was drawn up almost a century ago, in the aftermath of an economic collapse so devastating it reshaped the American psyche forever. We need to go back to 1929. We need to understand what happened when the market crashed, and how the response to that crash built the architecture of control we're living inside right now. October 1929, Black Tuesday. The stock market loses $16 billion in a single day. That's roughly $200 billion in modern currency. But the number doesn't capture the psychological destruction. Millionaires become paupers overnight. Banks fail by the thousands. Families lose everything. Unemployment hits 25%. Breadlines stretch around city blocks. Hoovervilles, these makeshift slums named after the president who promised prosperity, spring up in every major city. Men who wore suits to work a year earlier are now digging through garbage for food. The American dream, that foundational myth of endless upward mobility, dies screaming. And in the wreckage, something new is born. A question that terrifies the ruling class. If capitalism can fail this catastrophically, if the system can betray this many people this completely, why should anyone believe in it anymore? The Soviet Union is offering an alternative. Communism is spreading across Europe. American workers are organizing, striking, demanding answers. The people who own everything, the industrialists and financiers who created the conditions for the crash, they realize they have a problem. They can't just rebuild the economy. They have to rebuild belief in the economy. They have to make people want to participate in a system that just destroyed their lives. Enter Edward Bernays, nephew of Sigmund Freud, father of public relations, the man who understood that you don't control people through force, you control them through desire. Bernays had already proved his method in the 1920s. He convinced women to smoke cigarettes by branding them as torches of freedom. He sold bananas for the United Fruit Company by creating an entire mythology around healthy eating. He turned products into symbols and symbols into psychological needs. And in the 1930s, he turned his attention to the bigger project, not selling a product, but selling a system. The technique was simple: create artificial needs. Make people feel incomplete without consumption. Link identity to purchasing power. Convince Americans that happiness comes from acquisition, that status comes from possessions, that the solution to every emotional problem is a new product. This wasn't about meeting genuine needs. This was about manufacturing dissatisfaction, then selling the cure. And it worked. By the 1950s, America had transformed from a nation of savers to a nation of consumers. The post-war economic boom was built on this foundation. Suburbia, the nuclear family, the two-car garage, the television in every living room. These weren't organic developments. They were engineered outcomes, designed to create maximum consumption. Now, here's where it gets dark. To make this system work, corporations needed information. They needed to understand consumer behavior at a granular level. What makes people buy? What triggers desire? How do you predict purchasing decisions? In the 1950s and 60s, this research was crude. Surveys, focus groups, sales data. But the appetite was there. The hunger for psychological insight into consumer minds. Because the more you know about someone, the better you can manipulate them. The better you can target them. The better you can extract value from their existence. Fast forward to the late 20th century. The internet arrives. And suddenly, the game changes completely. Because now you don't need surveys, you don't need focus groups. You have direct access to human behavior in real time. Every click, every search, every purchase, every page view. The internet isn't a communication tool. It's a surveillance infrastructure disguised as a convenience. And the corporations who build it understand this from day one. Google launches in 1998. The pitch is simple: a better search engine, more relevant results, no banner ads cluttering the page, just a clean white screen and a search box. Innocent. Helpful. But the business model is something else entirely. Google doesn't charge users because users aren't the customers. Advertisers are the customers. And what Google sells to advertisers is you. Your search history, your location data, your email content, your browsing patterns, your social connections. Everything you do on the internet, tracked and logged and analyzed and packaged and sold. And the genius of it is that you give this data freely. You volunteer it because the services are so useful, so convenient, so integrated into modern life that opting out feels impossible. Facebook launches in 2004. Same model, different execution. Connect with friends, share photos, stay in touch. But underneath, it's a psychological profiling operation of unprecedented scale. Facebook doesn't just collect data. It runs experiments. It manipulates your news feed to see how it affects your emotions. It creates filter bubbles that reinforce your existing beliefs. It learns which images you linger on, which posts make you angry, which stories make you click. And it sells this information to anyone willing to pay: political campaigns, foreign governments, data brokers. The entire architecture is designed to harvest your attention, map your psychology, and monetize your existence. And then comes the smart home, the final frontier. Because search engines and social media, they only capture your digital life. But these companies want more. They want your physical life, the actual texture of your daily existence. When you wake up, what you eat, what you watch, who you talk to, what you buy, where you go. They want sensors in every room, microphones always listening, cameras always watching, and they've convinced you to install this panopticon yourself, one convenient device at a time. Think about what a smart speaker really is. It's a corporate microphone in your private space, always on, always listening, waiting for the wake word, sure, but recording everything to determine if the wake word was spoken. Those recordings are processed on corporate servers, analyzed by machine learning algorithms, used to build a voice profile unique to you. Amazon has admitted that human employees listen to voice recordings to improve the system, which means strangers are listening to your private conversations, your fights, your intimacies, your children's voices. And this isn't a bug. This is the feature. This is what you paid for. The smart doorbell camera, Ring, owned by Amazon. It watches your street, records your neighbors, captures everyone who walks past your house. And Amazon has partnerships with police departments. They request footage, sometimes without warrants, sometimes without your knowledge. Your doorbell camera isn't just protecting your home, it's building a surveillance network for law enforcement. Private cameras, privately owned, feeding data to the state. The merger of corporate and government surveillance happening in real time, and you're funding it. The smart thermostat, Nest, owned by Google. It learns your schedule, when you're home, when you're away, when you sleep, when you wake. It knows if you had guests last night because the heating pattern changed. It knows if you're on vacation because the house is empty. And all of this data flows back to Google, integrated with your search history, your email, your location data from your phone, your YouTube viewing habits. Google isn't building a picture of you. Google is building a complete map of your life. Predictive, detailed, monetizable. Smart TVs. They watch you watching them. Automatic content recognition technology scans everything on your screen, not just what you watch on Netflix, everything, anything displayed on the screen. And that data is sold to advertisers, to data brokers, to anyone interested in knowing what you consume. Samsung was caught inserting ads into personal videos stored on people's TVs, your own home videos, interrupted by commercials. The TV you bought, the content you created, monetized without your permission. And the ecosystem expands. Smart refrigerators that track your groceries and suggest recipes, which sounds helpful until you realize it's also tracking your eating habits, your dietary restrictions, your shopping patterns. Smart light bulbs that record when you're home. Smart locks that log who enters your house. Smart baby monitors that stream your child's bedroom to corporate servers. Smart mattresses that track your sleep, your heart rate, your intimate activities. Every device adding another data point, another sensor, another stream of information about your private life flowing into corporate databases. Here's what they don't tell you. All of this data is permanent. It doesn't disappear when you delete the app. It doesn't vanish when you throw away the device. It lives forever on corporate servers. And it's not just sitting there passively. It's being analyzed, cross-referenced, sold, aggregated with data from millions of other users to build behavioral models, predictive algorithms, Systems that can forecast what you'll do before you do it, what you'll buy before you know you want it, how you'll vote before you've made up your mind. And the accuracy is terrifying. Target figured out a teenager was pregnant before her father knew. The algorithm analyzed her purchasing patterns: unscented lotion, certain vitamins, larger bags. The system predicted pregnancy and started sending her coupons for baby clothes. Her father found the coupons and stormed into the store, furious that they were sending his daughter pregnancy-related materials. He demanded an apology. The manager apologized, and a few days later, the father called back to apologize himself. His daughter was pregnant. The algorithm knew before he did. This is the power of surveillance capitalism. It doesn't just watch you. It understands you better than you understand yourself. It knows your weaknesses, your triggers, your desires, your fears, and it uses that knowledge to manipulate you, to sell you things you don't need, to influence your political opinions, to shape your perception of reality. Because here's the thing about data: it's never neutral. The act of collecting data changes behavior. When you know you're being watched, you act differently. You self-censor. You perform. You conform. This is the panopticon effect. Jeremy Bentham designed it in the late 1700s. A prison where guards could observe all inmates without the inmates knowing if they were being watched. The genius was that you didn't need constant surveillance. The possibility of surveillance was enough. Inmates policed themselves, modified their behavior, became compliant. And now, we've built a digital panopticon. Corporate-owned, always on, embedded in every aspect of modern life. You don't know when you're being watched. You don't know what's being recorded. You don't know how it will be used. So you modify your behavior. You become careful, compliant. You internalize the surveillance and become your own warden. The psychological toll is immense. There's a reason anxiety and depression rates have skyrocketed in the smartphone era. Constant connectivity, constant performance, constant awareness that everything you do is potentially visible, recordable, permanent. There's no privacy. There's no sanctuary. There's no space that belongs to you alone. And humans need privacy, not because we have something to hide, but because privacy is essential to autonomy, to development, to creativity, to intimacy. Without privacy, you can't think freely. You can't experiment. You can't make mistakes. You can't be fully human. But surveillance capitalism requires the death of privacy, because privacy is friction. It limits data collection. It prevents total knowledge, and total knowledge is the goal. The dream of these companies is perfect information. Every human on Earth, completely mapped. Every thought, every action, every desire captured and quantified and available for exploitation. This is what smart home technology is building toward. Not convenience, control. And the trajectory is clear. Amazon is developing technology to read your emotions from your voice. They want Alexa to detect if you're sad and suggest products to cheer you up. Google is patenting devices that can identify people by their heartbeat, unique biometric signatures extracted from the radar waves bouncing off your body. Facebook is building brain-computer interfaces, literal devices that read your thoughts. This isn't science fiction. This is active development. Patents filed, prototypes tested, products coming soon. The end game is a world where corporations have real-time access to your internal state, your emotions, your thoughts, your unconscious reactions, where they can manipulate you at a neurological level, where free will becomes a quaint historical concept because the algorithm knows what you want before the thought reaches conscious awareness, and you'll choose it anyway, because it feels like your choice. That's the perfect crime, making exploitation feel like freedom. So what do? How do you escape a system this pervasive? This is the question that matters. Because understanding the problem is useless without action, and the action required is radical. Not in a political sense, but in the original meaning of the word, radical, from the root. You have to rip out the infrastructure of surveillance from your life. Step 1. Remove the devices. All of them. The smart speaker goes in the trash. The connected doorbell. The internet-enabled TV. The smart thermostat. Every device with a microphone or camera that connects to the internet, gone. And I know what you're thinking. But they're so convenient. That's the point. Convenience is the bait. The trap is data extraction. You traded your privacy for the ability to play music with your voice. That was a bad deal. Step 2. Rebuild your digital perimeter. Your phone is a tracking device that makes calls. Accept this. Turn off location services except when actively needed. Delete apps that demand unnecessary permissions. Use browsers that block trackers. Search engines that don't log queries. Email services that encrypt by default. This requires effort. It requires inconvenience. Good. Inconvenience is the price of privacy. Step 3. Rediscover analog. Paper calendars, physical books, handwritten notes, face-to-face conversations. These things can't be hacked, can't be data mined, can't be monetized. They exist outside the digital panopticon, and they're better. Reading a physical book is neurologically different from reading a screen. Writing by hand engages your brain differently than typing. These aren't nostalgic preferences, they're cognitive realities. Step 4. Build communities of resistance. You can't do this alone. The system is too big, but you can find others who've opted out, who've recognized the con, who've chosen autonomy over convenience. These communities exist, quiet, growing. People who've remembered that corporations are not your friends, that technology is not neutral, that you have the right to a private life. This isn't about going back to some imaginary past. This is about going forward with intention. About choosing which technologies serve you and which ones exploit you. About drawing lines and defending them. About remembering that you're a human being, not a data point, not a consumer profile, not a user to be monetized. The smart home is a lie. It's not smart. It's extractive. It doesn't serve you. It harvests you. And the companies selling it don't care about your convenience. They care about your data, about your attention, about their ability to predict and manipulate your behavior for profit. You deserve better than this. You deserve spaces that belong to you, thoughts that are yours alone, conversations that aren't recorded, moments that aren't monetized. You deserve privacy, not because you have something to hide, but because you're a person, and personhood requires boundaries. The stranger in your bedroom is still there, still listening, still watching, still learning, and they'll stay there as long as you let them. The door is unlocked. The power cord is right there. All you have to do is pull it. The question is whether you will.